Hello, beautiful listeners, and welcome to another episode of the BIPOC podcast. Today, we're privileged to have a guest whose life and work are both an inspiration and a revolution. Judy Hu, a boundary coach
Yay!
with an incredible story and mission, joins us today. We'll be diving deep into the world of boundaries, understanding the self, and liberating ourselves from societal constructs. And I'm ready for this enlightening conversation. You have been on my show before, and I'm so happy to have you back. Hi, Judy. How are you?
Good, Kai. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm so happy to sit and talk with you. I was saying to a friend of mine that our conversation last time was one of my favorite conversations
Oh,
because it was so genuine and it was so sweet
yes.
and it was so just emotional and thoughtful. And when I saw that we were going to be talking together again, I was like, yes. Oh my God, I can't wait.
I'm so excited. Thank you
Yeah,
so
hi,
much.
absolutely. How you been?
It has been a whirlwind. Just I decided to write a book in January and it's
Yeah,
now out, which is like the fast track with
yeah,
as
yeah.
maybe you know, with ADHD, it's like
Uh-huh.
if I'm focused on it, I get it done
Yes.
and like nothing else happens. So
Yes,
I
yes.
am relieved.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that. The boundary revolution is what it's called.
Yes.
And it's funny because writing a book is not easy. It's not
Hell no.
easy.
Uh-uh.
Before we get into like the specifics of the book itself, what was it like writing a book? Like what was that whole process like for you?
So my publisher is amazing. Thankfully, she's also neurodiverse. And
Uh,
I tried to quit twice, like just convince her, like, you should, let's just take this back. Like, just kidding. No. And she's like, come. And then she was say just the right thing because she talked
yeah,
about her own writing experience and all the different times that she wanted to quit. And her editor just kept, pushing her along. And my editor was amazing. And after those two times, she convinced me to keep going, and I'm so proud of the
that's
outcome.
amazing. So the times that you wanted to give up from writing, because I know a lot of writers. I know a lot of people that write books or not even just books, blogs and any kind
Mhm.
of creative people that's part of the creative process. When you wanted to give up, what was it about what your publisher said, and what was it within you that said, no, keep going. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to finish this.
So the first time was the task is to write the shitty first draft. So the
Right.
first manuscript, right? And
Yeah.
so when I put it down, I was like, I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. So it's just
Yeah.
I'm a total fraud. And she was
Oh.
just like, let the editor look at it. So that was the first thing. And she turned this like pile of like random thoughts into an outline that actually made sense. So that was the first time. The second time was everyone's going to hate me
Ooh, interesting. Like you're saying that they
because
would read through it and just like not like it
yes,
or
in
not
the
like you.
sense of like because I was so authentic. I brought my
Ah,
true self, and this is the revolution that I'm trying to kind of get folks to join if they'd like. Is I was super authentic about my flaws, how I was raised. I really intended it to be very respectful and empathetic to everyone who kind
mhm.
of influenced my life. And I was scared that they would be mad that I told the truth, right?
Mm,
And I shared some of the case studies, anonymized clients that I worked with and their vulnerability. And so it was like just this fear of being seen fully,
mm.
and then if I'm seen fully, because that's my, wounded younger part of like, then I'm really going to be abandoned or
Right,
rejected.
right.
And so
So it
that
was
was the second part.
right. So it was a combination of both what you thought other people would think of you and just like an internal, I guess, fear and anxiousness, like kind of
Mhm.
kind of kind of like working together, right? So that's a lot.
Absolutely.
That's a lot to take on. Like, and how did you feel once you were like, okay, you know what? You're like, it's done. All right, I'm putting this out there. How did you feel once it was like, okay, here we go?
Um, Angela, my publisher, describes it's like standing naked in Times
Mhm.
Square.
which is
So that
which is
is how I
oddly
feel.
oddly not abnormal.
I know
Oddly,
there's like someone who plays music there, right? Basically naked.
All you need
Um,
is a guitar and you're set.
yes, it would be severely abnormal for me to
Yeah.
do that.
No, I get it. I get
Just
it.
like kind of being, bare soul. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
been a ride and it continues to be.
Yeah.
It continues
That
to be.
that's amazing. So let's talk about the book. The book is called The Boundary Revolution. Tell everybody what is it about and what can people expect to get away from after reading it?
So the second part of the title is Decolonize Your Relationships and
Yes.
Discover a New Path to Joy.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really about bringing in the context of why we've all adapted in the ways that we have. And so I bring in the context of generational trauma, of colonialism, of patriarchy, of capitalism. And I try to give context to, oh, this is why you feel the way that you feel, right? So it's one of the last questions you asked me on the interview last time was, what's something you want everyone to know? And I was like, that there's nothing wrong with you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this is at the core of this book. If we go with that premise that there's nothing wrong with you, then how can we perceive and understand these sensations and belief systems that you have? And then I bring in the context of like, oh, it's because, they were poor, or, oh, it was because of immigration. Oh, it was because they were dark skinned. It was, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
bringing in the context of what information, what messaging are you getting externally that influences your belief system now?
Right, right. One of the things that I love about you and the work that you do, you talk a lot about like things like generational patterns, oppression, racism, patriarchy, the LGBTQIA plus community. I want to touch upon those things real quick. So, in regards to generational patterns, in your framework, how does generational patterns influence our boundaries, right? Because you're a boundary coach. How does that all connect?
So I'll use me as an example. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm East Asian, Chinese American. And so when Asians were brought to the US, right, the sole reason was to build the railroad system. So men were promised in China, come, this is so many opportunities, blah, blah, blah. And then laws were put into place that they could not bring women or children here. So in
Mm-hmm.
essence, could not grow root in the system, cannot create families, cannot stay essentially. And so then they forbade marriages. They were just hoping that, after a generation, they would just die out. Literally, this was the
Wow.
strategy. Okay.
Wow.
So if you come to a land where you're not supposed to survive, you're going to internalize, I'm not allowed space here because I do not belong.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not allowed to take up space here because I do not belong. So I have these visuals in my sessions. I've shown you before, it's these circles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to do with the boundary revolution is everyone is allowed to take up the same amount of space, right? That's the visual that I like to use, right?
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
if in my Asian body, I come here and historically have not been allowed to take up space, I think my normal size is much smaller than the white folks around me for whom I
Yes.
serve, right? For whom I'm building this land up, right? And so that internalizes generationally out. Keep your head down. Don't make a fuss. Be
Mm-hmm.
the model minority, quote unquote, which
Right.
is a
Right.
really place to be in society, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
because you're still not seen, only for what you achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And so what
Absolutely.
happens is as as I grow up, right, in this like felt sense of I'm not allowed to take up space here because I don't fully belong, in all of my relationships, I don't take up my rightful space.
Ooh.
In all of my relationships with my children, with my partners, with my friends, with my place of work.
Mm-hmm.
I won't set boundaries and say no, thank you, or this won't work for me, or this won't work for my family because I'm not allowed space. Not only me, the society also has that unconscious belief.
Mm-hmm.
And so the boundary revolution is really about how do I right size myself to a healthy boundary? right? To this unconditional love, regardless of my bank account, regardless of if I'm partnered or not, right? How do I right size the other person across from me, right? Either up to their right size or down from their entitlement to their right size as an equal to me? And then how do I relate to this person to negotiate this shared space, right? Because we're on this land that is not owned by anyone except Mother Earth, right? Like this
Yes.
so
Yes.
construct of like country
Yes.
lines and, you know, and so how do we communicate with each other in this nonviolent way to negotiate our relationship, what I want, what you want, and how do we, coexist together respectfully
Right. Right.
without dominating each other, which is what we learned in colonization
Do you
or
feel
being
that
dominated.
it's gotten tougher in today's world to feel that way, to feel like you're not taking up space, to feel like you're not a burden? Because I feel like sometimes when I'm either scrolling through social media or from watching the news, it can easily be felt, right? It's understandable why people still feel this way even
Mm.
after all of this time. Do you think that it's gotten more difficult for people, or is it still the same? Like what are your thoughts on just the evolution of humans when it comes to acceptance and when it comes to these patterns that we see? What are your thoughts?
I love this question, Kai. I love how you think. So I'm going to start us on this. Okay. So I'm
Yeah,
going to put a few stories together.
yeah.
When I work with someone, so when someone starts on therapy, one of the informed consents is you might not feel so good at the beginning, right? And the
Yeah.
reason is because you start to figure out what's actually happening, right? So when someone comes for the first time and starts to they come because they're super stressed out at work, all roads lead to home in the sense of how was your childhood, right?
Mhm.
So if someone has not faced the reality of their childhood, which is not to say their parents were bad, which is not to say they were bad, it just is about let's look at the truth, right? If someone is not used to looking at the truth, especially if there's pain there, it's going to be hard at first,
Sure.
right? And so that's the moment that we're in right now. There are people who see the truth and who are trying to get everyone else to see the truth, but there's resistance because it's painful. So that's why there's all this legislation right now banning books, making critical race theory, which is the history of America,
Hmm.
illegal,
Right.
right? Um, Not allowing women's right to control their bodies, right? So right now is a huge moment. It might feel harder, and it might feel harder. I was
Mhm.
going to say it might feel easier, but I don't think that that is the case right now
Sure.
because we're at a crossroads. Do you want to continue living in this fantasy that is actually killing all of us because
Yes,
this
it
land is
is.
no longer going to be possible for humans to survive, right?
Mhm.
Or are you ready to do the hard work by looking at the truth of where we started, right?
Right.
Without shaming, without degrading anybody. It's just saying this is the truth, right? I don't know who said it. The truth will set you free. 100%, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
in my book, I talk about all you got to do is acknowledge the truth, understand how it influences you, how it influences the other person, and then reconcile it, right? Hold ourselves accountable. Forgive, well, not forgiveness is not required,
Mhm.
but understand what happened, hold each other accountable, and figure out a way to move forward with the
Right,
truth, right?
right.
And so the people who have the power are the ones who are scrambling and undoing affirmative action
Mm-hmm.
and making voting harder, because all of the lies, right, are coming out now. The
Yes.
veil is being lifted, right? So there's this funny story. I was listening to a podcast and I can't remember which one, but they were telling us about the history of fairy tales.
Okay.
You know, where like someone poor is actually a princess or is met
Yeah.
by a prince
Yeah.
and then they come into their own, right?
Yes.
Fairy tales were intentionally created to calm the poor,
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
because
Okay.
then they would fantasize about the
Ah.
possibility of making it, right? If they just
Mhm.
did the right thing or if they met the
Yeah.
right person or whatever.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why. Isn't that crazy? Like
It
from
makes sense.
infancy, yeah, from
Yeah.
infancy, we're taught like, oh, you know, Sleeping Beauty or
Yeah.
Cinderella, right? The Cinderella story.
Yeah.
It has been this constant indoctrination, this educating us
Yeah.
or brainwashing us from seeing the
Yeah.
truth.
It's really interesting because it make like you feel like it would go without saying, but we don't. I don't think we ever think of it that way. I never thought of it that way, but it makes sense. It makes
Mm-hmm,
perfect sense. And
mm-hmm,
and so like so that's from the generational side, right? I
mm-hmm,
know that you deal a lot with the LGBTQIA plus community, the BIPOC community, and so
mm-hmm,
forth. Can you explain why it's so crucial
mm-hmm.
for our communities, the BIPOC community, the LGBTQIA plus community, to talk about these things, to really have these conversations every day? Can you talk about why it's important that we do be loud and vocal about this?
Mm-hmm. Um, I hate scary movies, but there's
Mm-hmm.
there's one that was like, you know, 911.
Mm-hmm.
There's a call, someone's and they're like the call's coming from inside,
It's inside the house. Yeah.
okay? Inside the house, right? The threat
Yeah.
is from inside.
Yeah.
So because we're raised in this society, it is inevitable that we've internalized racism.
Mm-hmm.
It is inevitable that we've internalized homophobia and transphobia.
Mm-hmm.
And so having these conversations regularly and going, is that a healthy way of thinking? Or how does that make you feel? Basically, is the question.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, if it makes you feel shitty or like you want to kill yourself, then
Yeah.
that's not a good thought,
Not
right? Like
not a good thought. You should.
reconsider that thought, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason, right? The other part is a lot of the people that I work with are partnered or work in spaces where
Mm-hmm.
folks around them are from the dominant culture.
Yes.
Okay, so dominant culture meaning they might have been raised by families who had access to generational wealth or
Mm-hmm.
stability. And so those partners, right, have had the experience of love and financial security. So they're
Mm-hmm.
going to know what their worth is. They're going to know what they're allowed to have, right? If someone who's been oppressed and has like conditioned themselves like, okay, I can get by on crumbs,
Mm-hmm.
in relationship with them, in their romantic partners, they're going to have a really hard time standing up for themselves in a healthy way to hold their own boundaries
Yes.
as an equal to their partner. And so in these interracial relationships or, where intersectionality comes in, it's really, really hard to be in a healthy, happy
Mm-hmm.
relationship if we don't undo
Yeah.
the programming.
Right. Right. It's funny because all of these things, I feel like I don't know why it feels so taboo to talk about these things because it shouldn't. It shouldn't.
100%.
But I feel like sometimes, like to your point, we're just afraid to have these conversations because of what you were saying earlier. Like we want to, stay in our lane. We want to like
Mm-hmm.
just not cause a ruckus. We want to just
Mm-hmm.
do whatever we can to get by and to survive and all of that. But it's important to have these conversations. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious for you personally, obviously being who you are, right, as a human, and speaking with these communities, how exhausting is it for you personally? How do you find that strength every day to continue these conversations on a personal level? Where are you drawing that from? Because I'm sure it can't be, while it is fulfilling, I'm sure it is also very exhausting sometimes as well.
Mhm.
To hear these things and to take action and to help and all of that. Exhausting from a mental and physical standpoint. Where do you draw that strength from every day?
So part of it has to do with healing my own boundary,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and that means I need to always be working, not always, because it's perfection is not the goal, from
Mm-hmm.
my functional adult. So this regulated, aligned, whole part of me that knows that I don't, my work is not to heal anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a savior, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's been promoted externally,
Mm-hmm.
that we're all supposed to be martyrs, people
Mm-hmm.
who look like me, right?
Right.
And so when I have these conversations, I'm no longer invested in convincing anyone to do their healing work.
Mm.
I'm just like, it makes me feel good. This is what I can talk about. This is what
Yeah.
I see is happening. You're
Yeah.
welcome to join me or not. And I just keep walking with my coffee,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not trying to hand out water and like drag people to go with me. I'm like, no, this is your choice. If the misery that you're sitting in is good for you, I'm going to respect that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because everyone has a choice and everyone has a right to live the life that they're wanting.
Yes.
Um, I want to go back to something you said about, it's taboo to talk about these things.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think it was intentional, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the writer's strike,
Yes.
right? Or
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood, okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, we're not supposed to talk about salary. That's
Right.
really uncouth. That's really, like no talk. Do you know who doesn't want to talk about salary?
The people paying the salary.
People who earn a buttload of money
Yes,
don't want
exactly.
you to know that they are making bank while
Yes.
you are working three jobs.
Yes, to
Right?
survive, just to
So
put
they're
food on
like,
the table.
it's really unprofessional to talk about
Right.
salary,
Right. Mm-hmm.
right? Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's very uncouth.
Right.
No, it's a way of oppressing because I'm keeping the truth
Yes.
from you
Mm-hmm.
that I'm earning so much from my streaming services and from your labor.
Of your hard work,
I don't want
your art. Mm-hmm.
100%. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'm like, everyone needs to be talking about how much money they make.
Oh yeah. I've learned some things that, from the writer's strike, just from the artists
Uh-huh.
and all of that, and the actors, SAG-AFTRA as well on the
Mm-hmm.
actor side. I've been seeing a lot about the people that are making like the big decisions and how much money, not only how much money they make, but how much they're concerned about them losing, which isn't
Yes.
much, which is like for what these organizations
Mm.
are asking for these companies, it's pretty much a drop in the bucket, right? Like they're the actors and the writers are saying we want to work for you, we just want to be compensated for our work because you're just taking everything
Yeah.
from us,
It's
everything.
not just compensated. We want to
Yeah,
be able to not worry about paying our bills every month.
exactly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's really scary, and I WGA, SAG-AFTRA, like anybody that's listening, I hope that you are following this story. I hope that you are reading up and
Mm-hmm.
watching all of this go down. Like there's a reason that all of your favorite TV shows and movies are going to be delayed and are
Mm-hmm.
going to possibly not even happen. There's a reason why your TV is full of reality TV shows right now. There's people out there for movies and TV shows and stuff that you love that you watch at the end of your day,
Mm-hmm.
to get in after a hard days of work, that are just not being compensated for their work. And the more I hear about it, the more I get worked up. I'm like, oh my gosh, they are really taking advantage of these people. And you
A
can
hundred
really,
percent.
and I'm glad we're talking about it because like you and I, because it really can be connected to what what you do and what you talk about every day. It's really interesting.
Yes, and everything's connected.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I hope I create a revolution here by the next thing
Yes,
I'm going to say.
let's make
I
it
had a
happen.
client, um, a Saturday morning, okay, teacher.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, I feel like such a, selfish teen by wanting to figure out how to leave this job. He's an
Mm-hmm.
amazing teacher and he's been in
Yeah,
the field for like 2 decades.
yeah.
And he's like, the stress, he's like waking up with suicidal ideation.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is not your teenager asking you to set boundaries. This is your functional adult saying, this is unacceptable.
Yes.
Right? So yes, the writers, SAG, all of the, media folks, teachers, what they are asking you to do, what they are asking you to tolerate, how they
Mm-hmm.
are asking you to adapt is not okay.
Yes. 100%.
Students, yeah, students in these schools, what they are asking you to tolerate, what they are demanding is the norm, is not. It is also not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we are all connected. You know why they're fighting so hard for this drop in the bucket? Because if they give in to one, it's a domino effect.
Mm-hmm.
And they know
Absolutely.
it.
Mm-hmm. And they're scared.
Because it's like, oh, I can actually fight for a living wage?
Right.
How dare I?
I could
Am
be
I
I
being
could be
presumptuous?
compensated for this? What?
And then other people will see because we are all connected. That's the
Yes.
thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 1% want us to like fight over the crumbs. And I'm like, no, 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 no. We need to unite
Mm-hmm.
in all the professions, medical professionals,
Yes.
doctors, I'm
Oh my
talking to
gosh.
you,
Front
right?
front line,
Nurses, I'm talking to
teachers.
you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Mental health
Yes.
counselors, I'm
Yes.
talking to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get together and demand a living wage, demand to live your life, expect more in your relationships with each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Money is not the focus, money is not the goal. That's just the
Mm-hmm.
shiny object they're using to get you to do stuff that they want you to
Mm-hmm.
do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's uh like that kind of stuff, it always gets me worked up because I just don't understand how we are not taking care of the people that we associate with every day. There's two groups of people that I always talk about on my platforms that I just don't understand how we're not treating them with just nothing but love. Teachers who are
Mm,
incredibly underappreciated, underpaid, so on and so forth, right?
100%.
Teachers, and a lot of times teachers spend more time with your kids than you do sometimes, because like when your kids are at school 8 9 hours a day, the teachers having to buy their own supplies, all that. So teachers are medical professionals, whether it be physical health or mental health, are nurses, veterinarians,
Mm-hmm,
like all of those people that literally save your life,
mm-hmm,
literally save your life. That is their job. They will go out of their way every
mm-hmm,
day, no matter how
mm-hmm,
much they're paid, to save your life and to help
mm-hmm,
you. And we
mm-hmm.
don't appreciate them. And then our men and women and everything in between from the military, how I just don't
Oh,
understand, after, even especially after they serve our country and they come back, and we don't care, and we
we
don't
do
take
not
care
take
of
care
them.
of
They
them.
go through
Yes.
some of the most traumatic
Mm-hmm,
events
mm-hmm,
ever, things that
mm-hmm,
you and I could never ever
mm-mm,
probably imagine,
mm-hmm.
like the things that they see and the things that they experience.
And the
And
things that they have to do.
right. Yes.
Let's just land on that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The things that they have to do
Mm-hmm.
to serve us.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. And I wanted to ask you about this because I know this kind of goes along into what you normally talk about, but
Mm-hmm,
uh, a lot of times online, like I'll see things like, oh, the Gen Z and the millennials nowadays, they don't know what it's like. All they want to do is go to therapy, and they're weak. When I was a kid, we used to, go to war, blah blah, like all this stuff. And I'm curious. I'm like, okay, but what happened when you came back from that war? There was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
unaddressed trauma that has now been passed down to
Mm-hmm.
us. What what are your thoughts on how millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha now are handling that trauma from our previous generations? How do you feel like we're handling it?
They're actually handling it.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Right. So it's interesting. It's like um my mom used to say, well, this is how I was raised.
Yeah.
And I was like, Mom, how did it make you feel?
Mm.
And she goes, I hated it. And I was
Yes.
like, yeah, that's good information
Mm-hmm.
because you should have never been treated that way.
Yeah.
Right. But again, to see the truth of it was too scary
Mm.
because she was seeing the truth of it from a younger part who could
Yes.
not tolerate the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so back to like, well, when I was a kid, right?
Yes.
That's a
I used to
trauma
walk to school uphill in
adaptation.
the snow.
Uphill in the snowstorm for 5 days, and then I'd get there, right? It's a
Yes.
badge of honor.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a badge of honor to have survived,
Yeah.
right? To even touch on the cost of it
Mm-hmm.
is too scary for some because they
And
don't know what to do with that pain.
yes, and it's still, and for a lot of them, it's still there,
A
unaddressed,
hundred
just like
percent.
suppressed right here. And
Yes.
I feel like there is a sadness there, and like just there's something there that just needs to be talked about. Which is why on my platform, I encourage people to have these conversations and to just talk about it. You don't even have to fully understand it, but
Mm-hmm.
just to get it out at least. And then I feel like people would be surprised at how it would make them feel to just say it. I feel bad because of this. This made me
Mm-hmm.
feel this way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I know that's what it was like for me. I was like, I don't want to talk about these things. And it's scary. So I'm just gonna,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm adding a burden, like my burdens to other people. I don't want to talk about stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it felt good to say, I feel this way
Mm-hmm.
because this, or this made me feel this way. And just saying it, I was like, oh, wait a second. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was nice to just say out
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
loud.
And I think part of it, tell me if this resonates, is
Hmm.
because someone might have heard you
Yes.
and
Yes.
received you in your
Hmm.
truth,
Hmm.
right? So part of the fear that people have about telling their truth
Hmm.
is that they're gaslit. That never happened.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You're being too sensitive about it. Because then
Mm-hmm.
that's another trauma. It's like I
Yes, it
just
is.
put my soul out there for you to see, and then you're like, nope, not gonna
Yep.
take it, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's when we know that our boundary isn't healed because we are relying on
Yes.
someone's mirroring or acknowledging of
Mm-hmm.
us to feel like it's true,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
No, if I feel it and if it's true for me, that's enough. I'm going to offer it as a gift. If the other person doesn't receive it in connection to me, then that's not on me. That's
Yeah.
on them.
Right. Do you have any examples of success stories from, from people that you've worked with that, you know, might have not really understood boundaries, and they walk out from, working with you and just have a better feeling? Like, are there any specific stories that you can recall that stand out to you that you're like, okay, this person is in a better place now?
Mm, I mean, so many, I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to land on when it couples, right?
Mm.
So most therapists are like, I'm not going to do couples therapy with the 10-foot pole. It's like so,
Yeah.
so confusing.
Yeah.
The way I do my couples work is I focus on each of them to heal their boundary.
Yeah.
And then I have them see why they're coupled, right?
Mm.
So who we're attracted to romantically is always the good and bad parts of our parental figures.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, you married your mom. Oh, you married your dad. Right. And I use
Yeah,
humor,
yeah.
right? Because it's not a
Levity, oh yeah,
bad
that's
thing,
yeah.
right? It's just
You
like,
know
let's
me,
just look at the
that's like what I am.
dynamic, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the success story is same person I was talking about earlier, right? This teacher who
Mm-hmm.
was like, I am at a point of no more. And I was like, thank fucking God. Right. I was like, about time. I mean, I worked with them
Yes.
so long. They know we do this sarcasm and
Yeah,
banter. And when they first came to me years ago, it
yeah.
was like hopeless,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not sure how they were going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
A gay couple. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The trauma was too much, right? Is basically where they
Mm-hmm.
were landing. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
and I kept saying, mind your own business. What's happening for you? What's happening for you? What's happening for you? And
Yeah.
then as they did their work, I'm like, mind your own business. What's happening to you? What's happening to the other person, right?
Yeah.
And then as they got solid, right? They came to this crisis, a medical emergency.
Mm.
And the one of the men was like, all I wanted was you next to me because you're my person. And I
Yeah.
was like holding back tears,
Oh my gosh.
holding back tears, right?
Oh my gosh.
Because I was like, can we just pause on that for a second and just repeat? And he goes, I know, I cannot believe I feel this way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other person was like, his husband was like, you're my person too. And did you see how I held it together so I could make sure that you felt okay because he was the one in so much pain?
Oh
And
no.
he was like, yes, that's why I can count on you now. Because you're not making it all about you. You see me
Yeah.
too. And he's like, yes, right? So they were able to relate to each other, both in their functional, mature adult part
Mm-hmm.
of their brain, and
Mm-hmm.
go, we got through that emergency. And I was like, yeah. And you did it really well. Not
Yeah.
perfectly,
Yeah.
right? There were some bumps in the road that we cleaned
Sure.
up in our session,
Mm-hmm.
but they knew that the other person was there for them
Yeah.
as much as they were there for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? That
Oh my gosh.
interdynamic, that interdependence
Yeah.
is the healing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love myself as much as I love you,
Mm-hmm.
as much as I love the other person. So the boundaries that I set is not limiting my love for these
Mm-hmm.
other people. The boundaries I set is how do I love you as much as me, right? For
Yeah.
some people, I'm going to keep them way far away and I'm going to
Yeah.
love them from afar and I'm going to wish
Yeah.
them well and like hope the election turns out the way I want. And they're just, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then there are
Yeah.
other people who are able to tolerate having
Mm-hmm.
hard conversations with me that I'm going to gradually let come closer because they got
Mm-hmm.
to earn my trust to be in close proximity to me.
Right. Right.
Right.
Right.
And so, earlier, Kairos, you're like, how do you get the energy? When you got riled up, right,
Mm-hmm.
about how things were going, what do you usually do with that energy?
Are you asking like you want me to
Yeah, yeah,
answer?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
does
absolutely.
it does it make you
Yeah.
like hopeless or how did it?
It it used to be
Mm-hmm,
honest, it used
mm-hmm,
to,
mm-hmm.
but I tried to not make it about me per se.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's like a bigger story, there's a bigger picture. And can I personally solve everything? No. But
Mm-hmm,
I know that I could play a role. I know that I can use my platform to
mm-hmm,
talk about these things and to help people feel validated and to help
mm-hmm,
people, feel heard, like much like I
mm-hmm,
have.
mm-hmm,
And it because that made me feel good. So I try to just spread that validation, that love, that acceptance as
mm-hmm,
much as I can,
mm-hmm.
because like who knows who might be listening to this or watching this right now. It might be one person
Yes.
that's like, I needed to hear this today, and then they take action, or it saves
Yes.
their relationship, or it saves them personally, whatever it may be. So I try to get in that mindset. So when I get riled up, it's because I want people to know that like I care. People care. There are
Yes.
people out there that care
Yes.
about you. We want
Yes.
you here on this planet. We want you
Yes.
here feeling the joy in your life that we often get to feel. We want you to feel loved and just like I want to give everybody a big old hug.
Yes.
That's what it makes me want to do.
And Kai, you do an amazing job doing that. The
Thank you.
videos you do, the way that you host your podcast, you are just, it feels like a big hug.
I don't take compliments well, so I'm like squirming.
I know. Let's sit with that for a second. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. I feel hugged when I see your work. I laugh and I'm like, oh my gosh, me too. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if if you can receive what you're trying to put out there, that's also the medicine, right? Right? You're trying to hug other people, like let people
Yeah.
hug you back.
Yeah. It really does feel good. Like
Mm-hmm.
I put up a post yeah it was a post I posted it completely by accident. So it was a post, it wasn't even edited, it wasn't anything. I posted it and I didn't even realize it. And then a day later I go online and I just see like just all of these messages of just love and support. And I was like, how did people just know that I wanted this hug today? Like they just
Uh,
knew and so like if I could do the same in return, if I can help people like watch one of my videos and feel good and laugh or
mhm.
feel validated and them say to themselves, how did he know that I needed to hear this today?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's what I try to do. That's honestly what fills my cup every day.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's what makes me smile. And it's very therapeutic for me every
Hmm.
day to be able to, get these messages and these comments and stuff, like to say, hey, Kai, thanks.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's really, really nice. So when I get riled up, that's why. I just want people to know, like, I love you. I do.
Yes, yes. And so that's directing that energy
Yeah.
in a place you have control,
Yeah. Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Rather than direct the energy on a place that we don't have control,
Hmm.
the 1%.
Hmm. Yes. Yes.
No,
Yes.
I have control over how I treat other people directly,
Yes. Hmm.
right? That's what I have control over. And I'm going to focus on that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so one of the questions you asked was, how do you stay energized?
Yeah.
Because I love what I do.
Yes.
Because I have finally figured out 3 professions later that this is why I'm on this planet,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so doing what actually feeds me,
Yeah.
fills my cup when I lead these groups. It literally fills my cup. I feel like connected to community. I feel
Yeah.
seen. I feel like I can see each other, the other
Yes.
person.
Yes.
That fills my cup because I know what I'm here to do and to
Hmm.
be, right?
Yes.
And I see that. I don't know if that's your experience. I see that in your posts. Like this is Kai, like
That's
your
me.
authenticity.
You get the genuine me
Yeah.
on everything that I post,
And
everything. It's
so,
that's
Kai,
sweet.
you
That's what you
doing
get.
that is you're giving permission for others, right? And that's why it's so important to, for the LGBTQ community, especially the trans community,
Hmm.
to
Yes.
have permission, not even permission, a fucking cheering squad. I've got like
Yes.
pom poms over here, right? Be you. We
Yes.
are not meant to be the same. I mean, look at the biodiversity around us. We
Hmm.
are mirrors of that, right?
Yes.
How do you be you and not look for the external validation?
Yes.
What you do is you be you and then wait for your people to come,
Absolutely.
right? If
Absolutely.
I know I belong here and I'm supposed to just be a beacon of light,
Yeah.
I'm going to eventually find my people.
Aren't those two words so strong? I belong.
Oh my
I
God.
belong. How strong are those two words in and of itself?
Mhm,
I belong.
mhm, mhm.
Oh man, it's so
And no one
therapeutic.
gives me that.
Yeah.
No one gives me that, right? So back
Hmm.
to the other story about the
Hmm.
Chinese coming
Yeah.
to this country,
Hmm.
you don't belong,
Hmm.
right? It was literally, the law was like telling us we couldn't be here to stay. And so what I'm saying is, in this revolution, Go inside and go, I belong.
Yes. Yes.
I belong here. As I am enough. I belong here.
I might have to make a video about that today because
Oh
that's
my
some strong,
God,
that's some strong
please.
stuff. I'm gonna have, I think
That's like
I
a
think I'm going to.
medicine,
Yeah, it
you
really
know?
is.
It's not,
It,
I belong more than you,
right. Yes.
right?
Yes. Don't make it, if you hear somebody say I belong, don't make it about you. It's
Right.
about them right now. Don't make it about
Yes.
you. It is about them and their
Yes.
acceptance. Yes.
Yes. But a lot of us have been taught, right? Limited resources,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
literally limited
Mm-hmm.
resources. The
You're
indigenous
giving me
knew
my
well.
content
No,
today.
good. At least someone can do something with what I'm thinking. Like I get so disorganized sometimes, you know?
Oh, I'm right
And
there
so it's
with you.
like
So,
the indigenous people were living in abundance,
mm-hmm.
right? When the traumatized folks came
Mm-hmm.
from Europe because of all of their historical trauma around like
Mm-hmm.
fighting for limited resources,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
They came with their mindset of
Mm-hmm.
scarcity.
Yeah.
It's such a shame that we're
Mm-hmm.
still living in that
Yes.
because there's enough for everyone
Yes, there is.
if
Mm-hmm.
people do not hoard their resources.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
I want to make sure that I talk about the group that you have coming up here. You have a group coaching program, Breaking Free, Remembering Yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just talk a little bit about what people would benefit from by
Mm-hmm.
joining that.
Mm-hmm. So I started the group because I wanted to reach more people and I'm limited on time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have two tracks right now that I'm building literally as we speak.
Yeah.
One track is the live group coaching that I'm going to offer for BIPOC only
Mm-hmm.
because there are very few, if any, safe spaces to be able to just acknowledge that racism
Mm-hmm.
is real, right? And
Yeah.
so that track is going to be for BIPOC folks, 8 live coaching sessions in addition to bi-weekly coffee hours. So
Mm-hmm.
live work with me too.
Yeah.
And then the teachings are all recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other track for everyone else is, especially if the timing doesn't work, is self-paced. You just get access to the training, which is
Mm-hmm.
basically helping you unlearn what you were taught, right? Your value,
Mm-hmm.
and relearn and heal your own boundary about who you are
Mm-hmm.
and to start to unearth that, right? And so it's step by step how to create internal safety, and
Mm-hmm.
then you learn to practice how to right size yourself into your equalness to someone else, how to right
Right.
size them, right? And then relate to each other using nonviolent communication. The thing that I love about the work that I do is I am literally, as folks heal their boundary, right? They're the word just left my mind. Um, when you're spies and you go in and you can infiltrate. Okay, that's the
Infiltrate.
word.
There you go. We found it. We found
I
it.
am hoping that they'll infiltrate the system that they're in,
Mm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
boundary healing again does not mean you have to heal anybody else,
Right.
but the way that you relate to others is actually healing in and of itself. So if
Mm.
someone's coming like angry and I'm able to respond to them with boundaries of like, I
Mm-hmm.
see you're really angry. The way that you're speaking to me makes me uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to step away and come back and help you in
Yeah.
2 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
That creates a ripple effect.
Mm.
So what we do also in the Q&A and the group coaching is we strategize. Who are you having to deal with right now? What's their power level? What do they have access to? What do you have access to? And then we strategize very carefully how to get what you need, not to manipulate like in a negative way, but
Mm-hmm.
actually give you access to the resources you deserve, you should
Mm-hmm.
have access to.
Right.
And so
Right.
what we're doing is we're constantly strategizing, especially because the upper echelons are the 1% that we're dealing with, right?
Yes.
So what I do is in a group, we work together to figure out, okay, try this and then come back
Mm-hmm.
and see how that works. Okay, and this is the next step. And
Mm-hmm.
because we're in a group, we're learning from each other and we're
Mm-hmm.
teaching each other through our own process. And so it's building community at the same time. So it's that same medicine. I'm going to do my work, and I'm going to allow my vulnerability, my true self, be seen by each other, right? And then create this community that we're actually wanting in the world. And then they go out and infiltrate their systems,
Yeah, and
like
it's
their
like
home,
it's
and
the
they create
ongoing
a safe,
thing. Yeah.
and then it just replicates that way.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's amazing. And for anybody listening or watching right now, that's like, I want more information about that. I'm going to put all of the information about this in the description of this episode. So all you have to do is click, and it'll take you straight there. It'll have all of the information that you need to speak with Judy and to get more information about all of this. Judy, thank you so much for sitting with me and for talking. It is legitimately always a pleasure. And I have one more question for you that because I always like to end these things with words of encouragement and love for people watching or listening. After everything that you and I talked about today, what's the one thing that you want people to take away from our conversation?
I'll be self-centered.
Okay.
My phrase that keeps coming is I belong,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you belong. And it's also this sense of relief. Oh, and I'm not the only one. Right? So our time together, this time and the last time too, is I belong here, and I feel seen, and I'm not alone here. Right? With someone who's as like just brilliant in who you are, your essence. So that like connection really is energizing. So is that okay?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Sorry, you had me in my feels for a second. I was like, oh
Good.
my gosh. I love it.
Yeah.
Honestly, thank you, Judy, for joining me today and for sharing your thoughts, your insight, your just education, your levity, all of that. Like honestly, your work truly exemplifies the power of self-awareness, the importance
Mm-hmm.
of understanding our place in this world
Mm-hmm.
as
Mm-hmm.
communities, as an individual. Honestly, to everybody that's listening or watching right now, uh, I really don't feel like boundaries are barriers. I feel like they're bridges to
Mm-hmm.
help us
Absolutely.
understand ourselves, to help us
Mm-hmm.
understand other people.
Mm-hmm.
And what I try to do every day, and I know that you encourage this as well, is just try to find your authentic self and be proud of
Yes.
that. Find joy in your journey, and
Mm-hmm.
that's going to take you far. Like
Mm-hmm.
honestly, for
Mm-hmm.
everybody that's listening or watching, that's like I like this person that he's talking to right now. That is Judy Hu. I'm going to have all of her information in the description of this podcast. I implore you to please go check out what she offers because like this is just the tip of the iceberg, and she has things that are going to change your life, honestly. So go speak with her, go watch her stuff, her channels, follow her on social media. I'll have all of that down at the bottom as well. Judy, thank you again so much for hanging out with me today.
Thank you so much, Kai.
Absolutely. And to everybody else, thank you again for listening to this episode of the Vibe Kai podcast. Until next time, my friends, keep vibing. As always, much love, good vibes, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.